Hey y'all, I'm Morgan and thank you so much for clicking on my video and tuning into my channel, and I hope that you guys will stick around for more. Today though, I am going to be talking about all the books that I read in May, which actually ended up being 12. I guess we'll go in the order that I've read them. That seems the most logical in how I can go through my notes and remember where we are. The first book that I read this month was The Homewreckers by Mary Kay Andrews, and this one was okay. Glowing endorsement, right? Okay. This one I gave 3.25 stars because while the concept was good and the story was okay, it just wasn't that engaging, but it is a contemporary fiction. This book though, our main character is Hattie Kavanaugh, and she works in the renovation construction business. And in this book, when we first meet her, she has gone all in on this house that she named Gertrude, which that in itself is hilarious and adorable. But like, she felt for this house, she wanted to restore it to its former grandeur, but it just needed too much work that they didn't have the money for. So she ended up having to sell that at a loss, and led her to agreeing to be on a show called Saving Savannah, and the story plays out from there. The title, The Homewreckers, is because the show that started out as Saving Savannah, the network wanted to add more intrigue to it and decided to call it The Homewreckers instead. I mean, it is a home renovation show, so I kind of get that, but at the same time, that's kind of a stupid name. On the back though, it promises a romance and stuff like that, but that is hardly in the book at all, especially the second character of the romance. Hattie had no idea about it, really. Nothing. And then there's the murder mystery aspect. It just was not my cup of tea. So the next one I read is not like my typical reads. I've been trying to finish this series because for some reason I'm invested with these characters and their horribly dysfunctional relationship, and that would be After We Fell by Anna Todd. I do not get so many of the choices of this novel. This is the third one in the After series with Tessa and Hardin. I don't know. I think that the characters definitely did make more grown-up decisions in this book, but then some of the drama things, of course, because books are full of drama, were weird. And then the thing that happened at the end, I really don't understand it. It made no sense for those two characters at all, except to like throw a rock at Hardin's brain that was slowly starting to become a better functioning emotional person. And then that happened, and nope, back to angry Hardin who just wants to hit people. So I don't get why she did that, but let's move on. Let's move on to better books. The third thing that I read this month would be State of Fear by Michael Crichton, which I did not know was as much about climate change as it was, or more so the media's spin on what events were happening and how media perception affects everybody's perception of something just because the media, which we all know how they do things. I gave this book 3.5 stars though because it was super engaging. Like, the things that it was talking about, the themes, so relatable to today. Just take out climate change and put in any other idea that the media is pushing you to be afraid about. Corona, war, economy, anything. But the main theme though, besides the media thing, is like what one of the professors in the book said: the easiest way to control a population is to keep them in a state of fear. Overall though, like with all of his other works, Michael Crichton just, yes, I might be saying his name wrong, I don't know. It's super detailed with the scientific-y stuff. There will be graphs in the physical copy, of course. and the details are there for sure. And his writing just seems super timeless, kind of. No matter when he writes it, it still feels like it could be today. That was one of my really anticipated releases this month, which would be Book of Night by Holly Black. So I liked it, and I was so excited for it to come out because I love her other books. But it did let me down just a tad bit, not a lot. It was still 4.25 stars, so it was good. I love the storytelling. I love the magic system itself. Like, it's based off your own shadow, and some people just are able to quicken their shadow to control it, and there's even different classifications of, you know, the shadow magic, and that was great. It was just the character herself, kind of, I don't know, I didn't like her as much. I couldn't connect with some of the decisions she was making, I guess. So I did a full video review though of this if you would like more thoughts on that, and that can be found here at this little link above. And yeah, I kind of hope though she does continue maybe with Charlie's World, because of the way we left the end of it. I would like to find out what's gonna happen with Charlie and her shadow. While I was physically reading Book of Night, I was audiobooking In the Garden with Beasts by Eric Larson because I needed something to take with me while driving or doing chores or whatever. And this is a nonfiction book about the life of Ambassador Dodd. Well, not really his life, but okay, his time as U.S. ambassador to Germany during the rise of Hitler and the regime right before the war. I think it's over a span of 6 years. But it's based off his correspondences with the president or other members of the state, personal letters, journals, his daughter's letters, her autobiography of their time there. And it just paints a really unique picture of what was happening in Germany and about what it shows you kind of like the public's perception of things was at that point, and even how this American family who didn't really have strong sentiments towards that party or the Jewish people's, like, it was a very interesting take on history to actually go from private diaries, letters, and journals and like really see what was happening at that time and what people weren't seeing, because our American government was not as concerned by what Hitler was doing as the fact that Germany owed us money and they weren't paying. Next up is one that I was anticipating reading, and I was like looking forward to it a little bit, but I did not expect to enjoy City of Dusk as much as I did. This one, it took a minute, because at the beginning, of course, we're being introduced to the characters, to the world, and you know what their different magics are, and slightly the struggle that's going on in the world. But once we moved past that into the real grit of the story, it was so good. I gave it 4.5 stars, and oh my gosh, I enjoyed this book so much. I did a full video review of this one as well, so you can go check it out for my full thoughts. But just watching how some of the characters developed, like Tessa's descent kind of into her own power as she saw it, but really it was kind of like insanity. That was incredible. That's probably not the right take to have on it, but I enjoyed her bits of the story. She felt so that what she was doing was for the greater good. It was for the right. But looking then through her friend's eyes at what was happening to her, and just, yeah. I didn't like though how her friends separated themselves from her. I mean, lifelong friends, and you see that what she's doing and you think, oh, she's just been hiding who she is all these years, or she's just been selfish and why didn't I see it? Dude, your friend is obviously losing some nuts up there. Come on. Don't abandon her. But yeah, I cannot wait till book 2 in the Dark Gods trilogy. It just says the Dark Gods, but I think it's going to be a trilogy. I can't wait for book 2 though. That's so good. Please pick this book up. If you want to pick up any of the books that I read in May, this one. Do this one. We're halfway there now. The next one that I read is another Holly Black, and it would be The White Cat as the first book in the Curse Workers trilogy. I still have my bookmark in here because this is a bind up, and I want to remember where I am when I get around to Red Glove at some point. This one was only a 3.5 star read. It dealt with another interesting form of magic, as with all of her books. Everybody in this book though wears gloves because for the magic to work, somebody has to touch you. And the people who have the magic are called workers, which is kind of a slangish term, and it's pretty much illegal, so everybody who does it kind of is a part of a crime family. There are worker children or worker people who are not part of the families though, but since they're so ostracized by society at large, most people somehow end up working for these families. And our main character though comes from a worker family. Like, everybody in his family is a worker, and it's a long line of them, but he is not. He's the one person without powers, and while he would greatly like to have powers, he is making do on his own as a con person and his wit, and he's still in high school. I do not particularly remember how old he is. But this story follows him trying to figure out what is going on with his life, why he's having these vivid dreams that's causing him to sleepwalk, pretty much being kicked out of school, having to go back home, and piece together his life of what's happening because his brothers are being kind of suspicious. And yeah, not a good description, I guess. And it wasn't a bad story, I didn't like this character as much. And though I do feel really bad for how it ended with him. I feel really bad because he's gonna be upset as my stack continues to grow. Next up is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I'm still not sure how to say his last name. We'll move on. This one I gave 3.75 stars because it's so debatable. Everybody seems to love this book, and I just liked it. It's mostly because I could not connect with the characters, and I don't know why I couldn't connect with the characters, because I really wanted to read this book. I loved Varg. He was my favorite of the three perspectives we followed, but the others not as much. I especially didn't like Elva's. I'm trying to block out her name apparently. I really didn't like her perspective. It got a little more interesting towards the end, but otherwise reading from her was just kind of annoying. I also did a full video review of this book, so I won't go too into detail about it, but I cannot wait to get to the second one and hope that because we've already been invested with these characters, that it'll get a little bit different or a little bit more maybe into stuff. Yeah, so I'm hoping that the second book will only raise my opinion of this series. This is book 1 in The Bloodsworn. The Bloodsworn are a mercenary group in the book who hunt these god-descended people that are outlawed kind of in society, or that act up to cause a problem, murder somebody, whatever. And the Bloodsworn as a group, they're hilarious, but then again, this is also Varg's perspective, who I enjoyed. But it's not just him, it was like the group itself, like how they were made up, the characters there, they were really enjoyable to see and be with. So can I ask that I hope there's more of them, especially considering what happened at the end of this one, that maybe two perspectives can be together. Okay, the last book that was on my actual TBR, which on there I said Crescent City, but it's The House of Earth and Blood, that's part of the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. This one was a 4.5 because the story, dude, the story. I love the world she created here, and the uniqueness and the variance and all the creatures, all the magical beings. I would be okay if this wasn't even have any of the romance that was in just this last little bit even, or it's the enemies to lovers thing, and I would be okay if that wasn't in this book. Like, the story itself would have worked. The friendship of it, you know, that was what I think glued it together there more than anything. Yeah, I also did a full video review for this one if you want like all the thoughts. Main characters in this book are Bryce Quinlan, who is a half fairy, half human. So of course, you know, her whole life she's been told she doesn't really fit into either sides. It's one of the things I didn't like is how judgy fairies were in this book. Again, why are fairies always snobbish type of peoples? And the angels, of course, so many of the angels were the holier than thou type. Nobody seemed to like the angels, and they are the policing force. So yeah. And our other character is Hunt Athalar, who is a fallen angel. Not fallen is the sense we think of, though. Fallen as in he tried to fight against his archangels and their ruling overlords. The story itself, though, is so intriguing. Definitely want to read the next one. Have to wait till it's out in paperback, though, because not going to have my series not matching. So I just picked up another one that came in the May Unplugged book box, and it is The Standin by Lily Chu. This one is, I think, a contemporary romance or just contemporary fiction? I don't know. Our main character is Gracie Reed, and it takes place in Vancouver, Canada. Obviously, you can tell she is part Asian. Her mother immigrated from China before she was born, and as such, Gracie is mistaken for a famous Chinese actress who just happens to be in the city when Gracie is photographed, believed to be her, comes to her and be like, hey, I'm very worn out from doing this play. Would you be willing to be a paid body double and go to public events for me so I can sleep? And that was part of the problem maybe with this book, is it would just seem super unrealistic in that aspect. I get it, that's what a lot of the romantic comedies work with, is you know, little things like that that might not, you know, seem like to happen very often. Through the whole book, though, she is trying these different apps to be productive with lists and everything, and none of them were really working for her. They weren't doing what she wanted them to do. So she began just, you know, to compile and create her own. Like, I loved the physical copy of the book. Like, the chapter headers had all of these things. Like, that one's just a post-it note, of course, but let me find a different one that's more. Or, like this one. All of them will look different as she is trying different apps or post-its even, and just trying to figure out how she wants it to be, and she ends up just, you know, creating her own, and eventually it gets to that, and it's called Epi, and it's adorable. Gracie, though, is a super relatable character. At least I find her super relatable. I love doing my to-do list and my digital planner, or how she could stand up to our male lead character Sam, and like around everyone else, you know, she kind of was just a people pleaser, a yes person, like couldn't stand up to the bully kind of at work. But with Sam, she never took any of his crap. But them becoming friends, though, that was good. And the ending. This book does not have a happy ending. It is much more realistic at the end of the book than the beginning of the book. Because at the end of the book, it's not, you know, happily ever after. It's, well, let's give this actually a try. So the romance is, let's try, not, we're going to be together forever. I like that. More books should do that. That's all the physical books that I read. After I audiobooked, because Audible has this available to listen to for free. If you are an Audible member, you don't have to like spend a credit or money. It's just included in their catalog. So that one was an interesting one to listen to for that part. And after that, though, I listened to Seven Stones to Stand or Fall by Diana Gaibon, maybe, which is a collection of shorter stories in the Outlander world. A lot of them focus on Lord John Grey, which I love his character. He's just so sweet. The only one I didn't like was the last one in the book, which was The Siege. I just didn't care for that. I gave it a 4 stars on Goodreads, only just to give it stars, because since it is a collection of short stories, it felt weird felt kind of weird to rate it. I don't know. But if you like the Outlander novels, this one would be one to check out in between to, you know, fill in your gaps between the books, or if you've already read all of them and you just want more. And that was going to be all that I read in May, except I started Oathbringer a little early, or I was going to, and listening to Brandon Sanderson do the preface of his book and saying that you should probably read Edge Dancer before you started Oathbringer, because it takes Lift, who we were introduced to a little bit in book 2, and one of the other characters who she calls Darkness. It's the man with the crescent-shaped scar, and it just explains that that is kind of important because it will kind of explain when you see them again in book 3 why they are a little bit different. I feel like I like Liv's character a little bit more now, though if I'd had to actually read it instead of listening to it while being narrated by Kate Redding, who's always amazing, I might have not liked it as much because of the way Liv talks. It's very broken because she is a street urchin. Overall though, I gave this little story 4 stars, and yeah, I'm looking forward to more of Oathbringer and the Stormlight worlds. Thank you guys so much for watching while I talked about all of my May reads. I hope that maybe, if you haven't, I have encouraged you to pick up one of these because so many of them were so good. If you have read some of them, I would like to know your thoughts on them. If you think I should have rated them higher, if I totally missed out on something that was important about one of these books that would have caused me to be like, that's the most amazing book ever. I hope that you are finding something interesting to read this weekend and this month, and that you're going to have a lovely weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!